Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I am joined here, as always, by the man who is the James Harden to my Joel Embiid. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing good. I'm not really sure what being the James Harden means, but I'll take it. Looking pretty good so far.
Yeah, you could take it several different ways. Is it a compliment? Is it an insult? Who knows?
It's probably a little bit of both, honestly. So,
yeah, I think so. Please do not request a trade out of this podcast, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I don't even know what other podcast I would request a trade to, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah. What would be the moves? The James Harden version of is it like, oh, I have a sore throat, I can't podcast tonight?
Yeah, I don't know how I could how adding 20 pounds would mess up my podcast abilities. I guess I could put on 20 pounds and act like I can't do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that wouldn't really affect anything. Yeah, I don't know if that would be the move. Let us know in the comments. What's the best way to sabotage a podcast? In the meantime, Kyle, I feel like this could be a fun idea for a podcast, kind of talking about the rookies and how they, how they played last year, evaluating them, and sort of how we feel about them 1 year in.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, the big thing from last season was the 5 quarterbacks picked, which was what tied the record at the time. Tied the record, I believe, right? So 5 quarterbacks selected we could talk about. And plus, there's a lot of other interesting prospects that we saw either, stand out or, kind of work their way into the league. I think there's interesting things from this draft.
Yeah. Someone in the chat saying best way to sabotage is to grow a neck beard. Do you think that would work?
I can't grow facial hair that well, so probably not.
Yeah, I think you guys know. I think everyone knows my facial hair ability just by if you've watched my videos. I just shave like once a week, so whatever you see, that's what it's at.
I'll just randomly fall asleep during podcasts or something. Say,
there you go. I like that. Maybe pretend to have bad internet, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Just shut down my internet and
Yeah, there's things you can do. Let's go. Let's just get into it. Let's talk about the prospects. Let's just go in order from 1 to 32. Let's go. Trevor Lawrence, right off the top. Quarterback 1, drafted first overall. How do we feel about him after 1 year?
I don't really know. That seems cheap, but at the same time, what do we take away from this Trevor Lawrence season? And especially, it's like starting over once again because he's got a new head coach, new system he's going to have to learn. I think it's a tough job that he has, but at the same time, there were moments that I thought he looked pretty good, and there was moments that I thought he looked terrible. He had a month stretch of football where you could probably say he was the worst quarterback in the first round, and Trey Lance wasn't even playing. So I think that there's things that you're concerned about. I think that there's things that you say, he's one of those guys where if you put together a 5-minute tape on Trevor Lawrence's best stuff, you say this guy's a future star. If you put a tape of Trevor Lawrence's 5 minutes of his worst stuff, you say this guy's an obvious bust. And somewhere in the middle is probably where he is right now, and he's got a ways to go.
Yeah, it's a weirard thing with I feel like, with really all of these rookie quarterbacks, I would say with the exception of Jones and Lance for different reasons. So the other 3, Fields, Lawrence, and Wilson, I'm going to kind of all put in a similar box because they all weren't in great situations, and I still think it's fair to say were disappointing at times, and that's kind of the weird thing. Although with Fields, it's hey, Fields showed flashes throughout the season, kind of sprinkled throughout the season. He showed those flashes. Wilson showed a little bit of flashes early on, sucked for a while, but at least started to show the flashes sort of towards the end of the year. Lawrence also showed those flashes, but it was weird where he did it in the middle of the season and then just sucked for the rest of the season. So I don't know exactly what to make with that.
Yeah, it seemed like everybody was out, and then he won that Colts game, which he played pretty well in that first half. Second half, not so much, but the first half of that game, he played well, and everybody was sucked back in and was ready. The weapons in Jacksonville aren't great, but I don't know how good they're going to be by next season either. So it's going to be really interesting, especially if they draft an offensive tackle number 1 overall. We'll see what happens, but it's a tough job. Being in Jacksonville right now is going to be really tough for him to succeed, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting, and he still did have some great throws in this, and I guess that's kind of the thing is I just don't know what to do with this season. Maybe this season is a who cares about evaluating because this next year we're going to want to see more consistency. We are, but I think that he kind of met that threshold of just enough for a rookie where I'm not concerned, but he didn't get too far over that threshold.
Yeah. Let me give you a hypothetical question. Throw you on the
Okay,
spot here.
sure, I like it.
If Trevor Lawrence went back into the NFL draft for this next season, after what you saw this year, would you take him first?
I think so. I mean, I don't know who else I would. Again, I haven't fully evaluated everyone in this draft class yet, so maybe that's tough. But at least I think I still do. And I was someone who said I wouldn't take him first overall last year, largely due to how much I like Zach Wilson, who we'll get to in just one second. But I just think that the ceiling is still so high. I'm not that concerned about he didn't make it work with Urban Meyer as his head coach.
Yeah, and Laquan Treadwell was his number one receiver for a lot of the year.
Right.
Too. That has to relate to it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's move on. Let's go to number 2, Zach Wilson. Kind of, I mean, should we just replay the clip of what we just said 2 seconds ago about Lawrence with Wilson now?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much he dealt with injuries. I think the one thing is that he seemed to have more big play spark. And this was something that people were kind of highlighting of why you love Zach Wilson is the high level throws that he makes are, upper tier when you're talking about the Mahomes, the Rodgers, that kind of thing. Those throws, I did see a few of those last season. It wasn't as often as you would like, but there were a lot of those opportunities I thought overall. And I thought he did a really good job. So I think I feel a little more comfortable for Wilson after week one or year one, but at the same time, I think he was in a better situation, slightly.
You think Wilson was in a better situation than Lawrence? I probably agree with that. Although I don't think either were spectacular. And Kyle pulling the James Harden thing with the camera cutting in and out. Okay, we're back. I thought that. I think I agree. I think that, again, still not a great situation. I think the biggest thing I want to see from Zach Wilson is just making your decisions quicker. You know what I mean? Like it just seemed like so long he was just sitting in the pocket for forever. That's a little bit concerning because I didn't see that too much in college. Kind of the weird thing about this is who said, oh, well, his biggest issue is he's not going to be able to hit check down passes because he's going to throw it, 4 feet wide of a wide open guy right in front of him. No one saw, his issues are something I don't know how anyone could have predicted going in. It was weird. I was these simple things are what seemingly gave him the most trouble. He was seemingly at his best when he was, under pressure and getting outside the pocket and making something happen. And at his worst when guys were wide open right in front of him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those were the glaring mistakes, but I do feel like that's fixable to me. It just seems like that there was some laziness with his footwork, that kind of thing that added to it. And I do think, kind of what we talked about last week, the Jets have set him up in a pretty decent spot to where I think the next couple of years, this thing can kind of get going a little bit. Elijah Moore, which we won't talk about because we're not talking about second round guys, showed some flashes as well. I think there's a framework here with the guys that they've picked to be a pretty decent team in the next few seasons.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to number 3 now. Trey Lance, who, there was a question about, do you want to go with Trey Lance? Is Mac Jones the guy? Justin Fields? They went with Lance, and Jimmy Garoppolo played for basically the entire season. So I think the weird thing, I guess there's 2 ways, because one thing is, I liked what I saw in the small amount we saw from Lance. He had 71 attempts last year, so how much do I take into consideration? But I thought it looked solid when he was out there. I guess the question with Lance, and maybe the more interesting question about this draft pick, is not necessarily, it's a bit results oriented, but do we kind of look at this and say, well, maybe a missed opportunity because they had such a team that was ready to compete and they instead decided to go with this project quarterback that didn't help them last year?
Well, so here's the question I have from this, and I think that I know the answer, but I'll ask it anyways. If this is Jamar Chase, Jaylen Waddle, Patrick Surtain, or Mac Jones, is this team in the Super Bowl?
I mean, again, it's weird, right? Because obviously you change one thing, everything else changes. But I'll tell you this much, if they have, at least if you have Mac Jones or you have one of those extra receivers, they probably do beat the Rams in that football game. So just isolating that one, yeah, probably.
Yeah, I even think Surtain would have been a really underrated piece if they added him. That probably would have been early. You trade back to get a guy like him. But at the same time, I thought that was a productive first year out of him and he would have helped. But yeah, I mean, so we'll see. The thing is that I don't know. We'll see. When I watched it, it seemed like that they didn't want to there was training wheels on the training wheels, it seemed like, when he was playing football games. Like, I don't know what exactly I take away from Trey Lance's performances for the little bit that he did actually play, because it seemed like they didn't want him to make a major decision in any game he actually had.
Yeah, it seems like this is a very much a to be decided on
Yeah.
how we feel about this pick.
Yeah, this is a incomplete grade so far, I'd say. But if you're saying that as far as helping the team last season, there was definitely players on this team that could have helped them win a Super Bowl that Trey Lance was not ready to.
Yeah. EM Baller in the chat saying, I don't think Max starts over Jimmy G, but a wide receiver would have helped them. I think that's also fair. That maybe like the addition of a wide receiver could have elevated that more than addition of going from Jimmy to Jones. I also think that, the guy who ended up getting selected with the pick that they traded was Micah Parsons. Like that could have also helped. So there were things they could have done. But the flip side is, are we punishing the results and not the process here? Because the process was like, hey, we're a good team, but we need to get over the hump here. And sure, it happened that we won our way to the NFC Championship game, but we didn't expect that going in. And maybe it's fair to say, like, actually taking a big swing at a quarterback might actually make sense.
Well, the thing is that if Trey Lance is awesome, then this team is probably competing for a Super Bowl for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
With the roster they have around him on his rookie contract, and with Kyle Shanahan, if he's awesome, they're competing for Super Bowls for the next 5 years.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the question is he awesome? We don't know yet.
Right. That's really what, again, for all these quarterbacks, we're going to have a little bit of it depends on how we see. It takes time for quarterbacks to develop. Let's talk about another position that takes time to develop, but it didn't this year. Kyle Pitts, who, it was kind of hilarious about Kyle Pitts. He got off to a bit of a slow start, and everyone was like freaking out about like, oh, you drafted a bust with the 4th overall pick. I was saying, listen, if he sucks this year, it's a tight end rookie year. Like they typically don't play well the first year. He ends up over 1,000 yards. Looks like a legitimate option already. Kyle Pitts meets everyone's ridiculously high expectations going in.
Yeah, he was fantastic. And I mean, even given the situation there, that I know Cordarrelle Patterson came on and had the career year at 32, which just never happens. But at the same time, like Calvin Ridley was supposed to be the number 1 guy. Pitts was supposed to be the number 2 guy. Calvin Ridley doesn't play most of the year. Pitts is all of a sudden thrown into that number 1 role, basically, where a lot of the defensive attention is being put to him and his talent. And he still ends up with a 1,000-yard season. I think he'll end up with more than 1 touchdown next year. That's my hot take. And I think that there's a lot of reason to be promising. There's a lot of promise behind this pick. He looks awesome.
Yeah, what the hell is it with these Atlanta weapons, or first Julio Jones and now Kyle Pitts getting these like incredible seasons but having no receiving touchdowns? Like, what's going on?
Is this just a Matt Ryan thing? Like, I don't get it.
I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those weird treads that we all think, okay, well, that won't be consistent, and then it's continues to be consistent.
Yeah. I'm willing to say he's going to have more than 1 touchdown.
Okay, over under at 1.5. Kyle saying bet the over. Let's go to number 5. Ja'Marr Chase. Kyle, this seems like an obvious slam dunk for me. There still is amazingly a conversation out here of should the Bengals have drafted Ja'Marr Chase, or should they have gotten Penei Sewell?
There's still a conversation.
Yeah, I saw lots of the Penei Sewell Ja'Marr Chase meme after they're in the NFC Championship game, in the Super Bowl, when there was that play where Aaron Donald got the immediate pressure, which made no sense because he got the pressure on the left guard. I don't think Sewell would have played there, but it's out there. People say it. I'm not saying it's on Twitter, at least.
Well, those people are wrong.
Yeah.
And you know what? Penei Sewell might have helped him in that game, but they're not making the Super Bowl with Penei Sewell instead of Ja'Marr Chase. So the Bengals bet down on this. They were right. It worked out really well. Is Ja'Marr Chase, is he firmly in the top 10 wide receivers right now?
I don't know. I never know of this stuff. I mean, sure, he's one of the 20 receivers in the top 10. I'll say that.
I mean, yeah, I would probably say so too. So
I mean, he's amazing. Like, I guess if I were to try and somehow come up with a reason why he isn't like this superstar elite guy, I could almost only say like, well, he kind of, a lot of his yards come from one specific type of thing of just like the one-on-one, single safety deep go route type play, but also like that's the most valuable thing to be good at. And he still can do other stuff like the screen pass aspect. And the only way to really counteract that is to keep a safety over him and double him, which like still adds a ton of value. So like even like if I was a hater, that's what I would say. And even that, you're still dealing with like an awesome talent who's going to help you out a lot.
it helps to be the best in the league at that thing too, which is,
right.
I mean, it's almost Randy Moss level, the way he's able to beat guys downfield with size and speed. I mean, it's unreal what he can do. I think he's in the conversation, and this is the pick of the draft, without a doubt.
Yeah. And I think also what's interesting, I was a little bit lower on Chase coming into the draft than others. I still liked him, but I was kind of just like, okay, well, will you be able to make like, Moss these guys at the NFL level? Probably not. Will you be able to, just explode past these guys at the NFL level? Like you're going to have to learn some other, like, no, like that's fine. He can still just do that to NFL players. So he's just one of those freak athletes.
Yeah. I mean, there's just some guys that like almost just never need separation, right? It's like him, DeAndre Hopkins, some of these guys just with their catch radius, with their size, with their length, everything that they can do, it just doesn't matter how open they are. They're going to find a way to get their hands on the football and catch it. So yeah, he might just be in that tier.
Kind of what's interesting is like he's kind of a similar, like a good comparison, I think, is like a Mike Evans. But like Mike Evans is 6'5", Chase is 6'1", but they still do the same. Like Chase is still able to do all of that stuff that Evans can do 4 inches shorter.
He feels a lot bigger than 6'1", that's for sure.
Right, exactly. Let's move on. Let's go to another wide receiver selected before Sewell. Jaylen Waddle, maybe we'll have a discussion here. I'm also of the belief here. I thought this was a win for the Dolphins. I think that Waddle was good, had over 1,000 yards and played better than that, I thought, and really fits that scheme well. You could obviously use a lot of offensive linemen, but it does, I think that there's a lot of interesting ways we could talk about for this. But first, I guess let's just talk about the player before we talk about the other aspects of it. Waddle was great this year.
Yeah. I mean, he set the rookie reception record, 104 receptions for the season, over 1,000 yards. His yards per catch isn't awesome, but you do think that's going to get better over time. Not to mention, Miami doesn't throw the ball downfield. It's just
that's a lot of schematic. A lot of it is, he's catching the ball 2 yards down the field type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I really love the Waddle pick. I'm interested to see what Miami does because I don't think they can do that forever. But it'll be interesting to see how this evolves. But for now, the pick looks awesome. The question is did they give up too much for moving up this high? It still feels like it's a pretty good pick, though.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love the trade at the time, and I didn't love this whole decision-making at the time of trading. I like the trading down part, but I didn't love the then trading back up to 6. And I think that there still is an interesting discussion of what's more valuable. I think that they got like a late-round pick back, if I remember correctly, but like, getting what's more valuable, Jaylen Waddle or like DeVonta Smith and a first-round pick? Like, what's the difference there is like how different is it? I don't know. I think I probably would have still rather I would rather stayed where I'm at and take whatever receiver falls to you there. But at the same time, like the results-based thinking is kind of like, well, like Jaylen Waddle is really good. I mean, I don't hate having him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the weird thing was like, it definitely seemed like that they loved Waddle and then obviously had to get some intel that someone was going to take him before 12. But then why not just pick him at 3 and keep your pick? I don't know.
Well, I mean, that part worked. I mean, trading back worked because you got the extra first rounder.
Right. So, I mean, there's a whole lot behind it. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting. But overall, I mean, the pick seems like a home run, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing about the Dolphins, they've had a plethora of picks and missed on a lot. So giving up the extra first rounder to hit on one, like I think that's, for them, you're happy there. I guess the other thing is, would you rather have Waddle or Sewell?
Waddle. I think Sewell's terrific, but Waddle seems like he's still a game changer.
Yeah, let's talk about Sewell now. So the Lions, again, were pleasantly surprised to see that Sewell fell to them at 7. They said, thank you very much. We will take that. They want to build through the lines. And I think that, just from my team building aspect, part of it is just a decision-making thing of like, I'd rather have like these elite receivers and like 5 solid offensive linemen, which is why I'm more willing, I kind of am more inclined to agree about the Waddle stuff. But like, again, Sewell was very good as a rookie, maybe not quite as dominant as we were maybe hoping, but part of that was playing half the year at right tackle instead of left, factored in for sure. And he was still really good. And, I think will only get better with time. So this is, again, maybe didn't meet the insane expectations that were put on him like Kyle Pitts did, but still played very well as a rookie is what I thought.
Yeah, I thought he was good. I guess the one thing is that, you know, Detroit was already okay on the offensive line before this pick. Now, you could say at
Mhm.
this point in the draft, it was kind of like taking the best player available sort of situation because they missed out on Pitts, Chase, and Waddle based on what happened around them. So you
Mhm.
say, okay, we missed out on those guys. Let's take best player available. That makes sense. And he seems like he's going to be a very good offensive lineman for a number of years as long as he stays healthy. But I mean, this team needs skill. I mean, that's very apparent after
Yeah.
watching their first season. I think Sewell did help, but I mean, I feel like I go through picks 8 through 12 could have helped their team a lot more in certain areas that I feel like that they were really bad at.
Yeah, it really comes down to like what's the easier way to build a team? Is it to build the receiving core and then sort of just
Mhm.
plug in kind of offensive linemen, or build a line and then plug in the receiving core? They're kind of the Dolphins and the Lions in terms of that aspect are kind of opposites there, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and a line with Ragnow and Decker is going to be okay, no matter who's the right tackle. I think.
Sure. Hmm.
Now, I think what was it? Decker got hurt, or both of them got hurt. I think actually, but I think you still feel pretty good about that. But you need to add some skill this next season for sure.
Yeah, I think that's agreed. And yeah, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're only doing first rounders, but that worked out as well. Let's move
Yeah.
on. Let's go to Jaycee Horn here at the number 8 pick, the guy who wears number 8. Listen, Horn didn't play a lot, so there's not too much we can talk about. He is another one of those, like, he played 95 coverage snaps, so another kind of. I thought he looked good when we saw him, so that's cool. But if you hit on that, hey, a good corner, not easy to get. There's a lot of value there. I think the question that they're going to have to answer for a decent amount is the why not Mac Jones or Justin Fields. That decision might have end up costing Matt Rule his job, selecting Horn over Jones, and who knows if he selected it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is so I had J.C. Horn as I had him as my number one corner last year before the draft,
Hmm.
and there was some promise there. But I mean, the tough thing is now he only got a few snaps his rookie year. Corner is typically a tougher position to come along in the NFL, so he's probably going to need another year before we actually start to see him pan out or not. Um, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but yeah, I mean, the tough thing is just it's not the Horn pick. I think is the problem. It's the process that led to the Horn pick that seems like the problem for Carolina right now because they doubled down on the Sam Darnold thing. They felt like that was the right play to get Sam Darnold into the building, and it didn't work out. And so now they're hurting on the offense side of the ball. They don't have a very good offensive line. They don't. Their highest paid running back is not healthy very often.
Hmm.
So the offense is hurting right now. And once again, this was another team that wasn't really hurting on the defensive side of the ball, I think, getting into this season. And then you also traded for Stephon Gilmore after Horn got hurt. So maybe you should have gone offense here.
Yeah, the Panthers are dumb, right? I mean, like, I think we
Yeah.
can officially say, even like the Ian Thomas paying him like 16 million for 3 years. It's like what are we doing here? Like why are we like what? I just the Panthers continue to make baffling decisions. But again, I like Horn to player, so that's kind of where it's like you get a good player.
Yeah.
That's the goal of the draft, is to get good talent. But I just think that there's bigger issues with the Panthers than that. And again, it still is a bit to be determined. I want to see him in a full season.
Right. No, I agree.
Mhm. All right, let's move on. Kind of a similar topic here with Patrick Surtain. I guess you're very high on Surtain. Again, I've always kind of been lower on Surtain than others. I didn't love him coming out of the draft. Again, I had him as like a top 5 corner, but I had some other guys I liked better. I thought it looked good. I mean, he's clearly a very
Yeah.
polished corner. That's what I've always liked about him. We did see the speed come into play a little bit, and that what would concern me mostly. But again, solid player. I like Patrick Surtain. I guess the question is, once again, is he worth not taking the flyer on Jones or Fields?
Well, Vic Fangio probably would say no, right? Because it cost him
Right.
his job.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I think, once again, I like the player. I like his fit in the system. Now, if they run the same system, we'll see, because I think it benefits him to keep those safeties deep because, like you said, the speed aspect of things. But, yeah, I mean, it's a quarterback driven league and you haven't had a quarterback for several years now. So, I mean, why not try and get somebody? Why not take somebody and just see what happens? Drafting a quarterback this year does not prevent you from drafting a quarterback next year. I mean, this is the most important position in football, and they've neglected it since they won a Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
I think that this is something that they should have prioritized, and they didn't.
Yeah, and also drafting a quarterback with the number 9 overall pick doesn't mean you can't still get Aaron Rodgers. Like that's something someone will take that quarterback. Someone will trade for Mac Jones or Justin Fields. I think what's interesting about Surtain as well. Let me throw this out there for you. Is there some reason to say like, okay, Surtain was solid this year, and I think typically you say, hey, solid as a rookie corner, that's awesome. You're going to have this room for growth, but and we'll talk about this with Mac Jones in a similar way. But like, I guess where does he grow from here? He's not going to get faster. So he already has such great technique and all this other great stuff that like there are some ways you can improve, but I guess like this is kind of the difference between him and someone like Eric Stokes, and why I like Stokes better is like, okay, who was better this year? Surtain was. I don't think there's a discussion, but I feel like Stokes has the higher floor, or excuse me, the higher ceiling than Surtain does, in my opinion, because like where else does he grow from here? That's my question.
There's potential. I still just like, I believe in like the idea of reps. Like as you get more reps, you're going to become more accustomed to things, and he's just going to read things better. He's going to understand the game more as he gets more opportunities. So I do think he just improves in that regard. Like you said, I mean, technique wise, there's not much for him really to improve upon, but he's going to, it's his full-time job now, basically in the NFL. So he's going to be working out. He's going to be theoretically getting marginally faster and stronger that way. And then, like I said, I think as he sees more reps, he'll become a better player.
Yeah, and again, I still like the player. I think he's good. I'm just a little bit lower than some others. Let's go to DeVonta Smith, a guy who I think played well for the Eagles. He kind of was, he was the number 1 receiver for them, and he was a solid number 1 receiver as a rookie. So you'll take that. I think the Eagles could maybe use a guy to complement him a little bit better. But again, to me, this is a home run draft selection at number 10.
Yeah, this was a really good pick. I think the only thing going against Smith is he's the 4th best pass catcher in this draft, and they all went ahead of him, right?
Right.
He kind of went under the radar that way. I guess here's my thing, because I think Philly has to feel really good that they finally drafted a good pass catcher, because this seemed to have plagued them for a number of years. Do you see a scenario where a team is going to do you see a scenario where a team's going to a Super Bowl as DeVonta Smith as their number 1 receiver?
Interesting. It's kind of similar to the basketball question, right? Of always like, can you win a championship with this guy as your best player? I think if you had 3 really good options and he was just like the best out of those 3 good options, then sure. But I think that's how it would have to be.
Yeah. Like I see those other 3 guys. I see Pitts, Chase, and Waddle being top guys on their team. I feel like Smith is really good, but he kind of just screams really good complementary piece to me.
Yeah. Great number 2 guy.
Maybe like Edelman-esque, should I say? I mean, he's probably has a little more higher of a ceiling than Edelman, but in that regard, sort of thing.
I get what you're saying. He could be that kind of like the line of, we need a good guy for that, who that line is. Maybe like a Golden Tate of like the line of like, if you're better than him, you're number 1. If you're not better than him, you're number 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say something like that.
Yeah, I can see that. But again, sort of like we said with Surtain, who knows? Maybe he'll get better. We will see. Let's go to another guy who, again, is another one of those who knows, maybe he'll get better guys. Justin Fields. Back to the quarterback stuff. Again, we touched. It's very similar with Fields as it is with Wilson, as it is with Lawrence. The one thing I think that I really liked about with Fields in his rookie year is the way that his running ability was a real aspect of his game, and that can raise your floor, being able to move like that. And that can just buy you more time, if nothing else.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it didn't seem like Nagy wanted him to run a lot.
Right.
Which didn't make a lot of sense based on drafting Justin Fields, but still. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that gives him a pretty high ceiling. There's definitely a low floor for him. I think that's very much apparent. I still think he has a long way to go as far as reading coverages, reading the defense and making those throws through tight windows. He's going to get some of that stuff, I think, eventually, but I still think there's a long way to go. But yeah, the mobility is a huge part of his game, and it definitely showed on the tape.
Yeah. Do you feel better, worse, or the same about Fields after 1 year?
About the same. I don't know. It's interesting. I still feel pretty good that he's going to be all right, but I thought at times he looked like the worst of the four, or I guess if you
Mhm.
throw in Davis Mills 5. So I think that's I think that's the thing I'm worried about. Like if I put like a worry meter on all these quarterbacks, like he might be my highest, but at the same time, I'm not like hitting the panic button yet.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I'd probably agree. Either him or I think if I didn't love Wilson's tape so much in college, I'd probably say that they're kind of on the same level for me. But again, those three are all kind of together, and just the hope is you give him a year, give him some actual help, and don't do this New York Giants thing where you fail to build a team around him, so you still have no idea. Several years into his career, like the goal after this season for the Bears is to know if Justin Fields is your guy or not. Like that's their goal.
Yeah. Yeah, give him every opportunity. He's going to have a much better situation, I think, just by default because it's not Matt Nagy. And
Mhm.
yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Next pick, Micah Parsons here, the defensive player of the year candidate. Micah Parsons was good, Kyle.
Very good.
Hmm.
Very good in pass rush. Very athletic. Everything that we saw on his tape in college seemed to kind of make its way to the NFL. I think he still has room to improve a bit in coverage, but for the most part, everything that you saw out of his game, it seems like is going to translate to the next level. He looks like a star. Cowboys hit a home run with this pick.
Yeah, and it's funny too, right, with him because it's like, okay, you get this linebacker, and and like, if he just played linebacker and played as well as he did, you're like, okay, that was good. Like that was a solid. Like I'm happy with that as a guy who I spent my first round pick on, and he not just did that, but also added being like maybe the best pass rusher in football this year.
Yeah.
Not maybe he
So
wasn't better than TJ Watt, but like a top 5 pass rusher in football.
yeah. So do you want to round out his game more, or do you want him just to move exclusively to the pass rush role?
It's such an interesting thing. Like I don't know. I mean, it's weird. I think I probably like to use him primarily as a pass rusher, but still have him kind of move around, kind of play a 3-4, let him be the outside linebacker, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Not to mention, you can let Randy Gregory walk this offseason if you do that. Um,
Hmm.
and he's shown to be really good at that. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I think there's still things he can develop, but at the same time, I mean, he's already a lead at one spot of the game that a lot of teams are prioritizing right now. So it's not like you have to spend a lot more assets to bring in pass rush going forward.
Yeah, I agree. It's a unique scenario, and also it's what happened this year. Someone goes down, Parsons can then just step in, and he can kind of that versatility helps you in several different ways.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Rashawn Slater. I mean, this was a slam dunk pick for the Chargers. I mean, this worked out better than they could have asked for. I think I've noticed a lot of picks I think I'm high on so far. I didn't really realize that until now. This was great. Like this, you got like a franchise tackle here with this pick that was kind of in a sort of mid tier round. Like it's hard to really have too much against it.
Yeah. I mean, dare I say they got the best offensive lineman in this or offensive tackle here. Because
Hmm.
I mean, Creed Humphrey obviously is a different
Sure.
conversation, but at the same time, offensive tackles in the first round, you probably got the best one and you got it at pick what is it, 14, 13?
Yeah, 13.
So yeah, I mean that's a great selection.
Yeah. I mean, again, who would you rather have? I guess, Kyle, I'll put you on the spot. Slater or Sewell? Who would you rather have?
I mean, I think I gotta pick Slater after year one. I still
Wow.
think Sewell
Well,
has a ton of upside, but Slater, I mean, he looked he looked almost dominant at points.
yeah. I think, again, we do kind of view this stuff a little bit differently. I think I'm always kind of like, I'll take the guy with the higher ceiling. It seems like you kind of will sometimes say, give me the known quantity a little bit more. I think I'd still go Sewell.
That's fair. I mean, I wouldn't
Hmm.
push too far back on it because I do think he's still going to be really good. But I think, I mean, I still think Slater has room to improve, and I think he's gonna, if Slater's one of the best 5 best offensive tackles in football in a couple years, I'm not going to be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree. Let's go from one offensive lineman to another. Why don't we? Let's go to the Jets, who got Alijah Vera-Tucker. This is kind of a weird move when it happened. I thought it was solid. Like I liked what he saw. Like he fit the scheme well. Really good run blocking specifically. I think all that stuff is good. I don't know. I mean, we're kind of at the first, like I guess, like okay pick. Like it's not like a slam dunk. It's not a bust either. Like you kind of got
Yeah.
what we thought you were getting going in.
Yeah, it seemed fine at the time, and it still seems fine now. They moved up in this one for this
Mhm.
because apparently the intel was that the Patriots were going to take him. But if you're moving up to draft an offensive guard over the Patriots, like you could have just let them take the offensive guard, unless you love the guy. I
Right.
mean, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. So it's like I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it seemed fine, and it seems like a good pick, and I think he could be. He doesn't seem like he's going to stand out as like a bad player. He seems like he could be a good pro for a number of years. It's just offensive guard.
Yeah, I mean it's really just it's positional value. That's the only
Yeah,
complaint you can have about that is drafting a guard at 14 because it's also not like okay, sometimes you see like a player go off the board and it's like Quentin Nelson. It's like okay, well yeah, sure, it's a guard at number 6, but it's like that guard. It's not like Vera-Tucker is really like that quality either, although he's again solid.
yeah, yeah. I think he's going to be good for several years. He just may not ever be a great offensive guard. He's just going to be fine, and he'll be
Yeah.
one of the better ones and not be a weakness on their offensive line.
Yeah, we'll see how his career develops. Kyle, all right, it's finally time. I know you've been waiting. How do you feel about Mac Jones? I think I know the answer.
Feel great. One of
Hmm.
the best rookies of the draft class. I thought he did some really good things. I think there's room to improve as he gathers more processing, as he learns more of reading NFL defenses, checking coverages, adjusting his offensive line. I think those are things that are going to get better. And then I think he just seems like a very stable pro. I think he's the accuracy and ball placement that we saw in college, we saw in the NFL. There was no issues with adjusting to the speed of the game. And I think it's going to get even better as he's given more talent because his number one wide receiver was Kendrick Bourne, and it's going to be even better next season.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the talent around him was fine. Like, I didn't think it was like this. I don't. Maybe the names weren't necessarily
It's
spectacular, but
not Jets bad, but it's not like I wouldn't put it in the top 13.
in terms of, I mean, I don't know. Is it? I mean, I thought that there was stuff like again, like I get the point, but what we kind of always talk about is depth matters so much. The Patriots always seemingly have depth here, and I think that's kind of the interesting thing. Like I like,
Yeah.
for example, like PFF was a big fan of the Patriots receiving core. They had it as 7th best in football, so I don't know if I'd put it that high, but I thought it was like solid this year.
Yeah, I did. I think he needs a safety blanket because this year it was Hunter Henry, which Hunter Henry I thought was pretty good this year.
Hmm.
But I think he needs that. I think he needs a true number one guy. That's what I want to see. So I think that if they can add a guy like that, whether it's through the draft or a guy like Calvin Ridley, then I think that adds a lot to this team. But I saw everything I saw to Jones I liked this year. And even when he made mistakes, I thought he responded well to a lot of them and bounced back. You look at that Colts game, which for the first half might have been his worst half of football this season, and then bounced back in the second half. All of a sudden, he had it in a one possession game because he rebounded and recovered in that game. I think there's a great mentality about him, and I think he's going to improve.
Yeah. Chat. We have delusional Patriots fans saying Mac, aka Mac Daddy. Do you call him Mac Daddy at all, Kyle?
No, he's mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese. Yeah, that's right. Of course, mac and cheese. Also, D in the chat saying bias Kyle. I mean, yeah, yeah, we're biased. Yeah, we don't pretend to not be.
Yeah, I'm 100% biased on this. Best pick of the draft, without a doubt. Home run. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. But he's certainly the quarterback you feel the best about after one season. I mean, he, exceeded even our like pretty high expectations for him.
Yeah, I mean, we both had him third best. Listen, there's no question he was the best rookie quarterback in this draft. Like, there's no
Mhm.
question. Now you
But
could still
The Davis Mills stands are gonna be mad at you.
he was okay. He was solid, but at the same time, like what's the next step? Because the question is still going to be: is the expected value of Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson still better than Mac Jones? We'll see.
For you, redo the draft. Patriots have the number 1 overall pick. Are you taking Mac Jones?
Yeah,
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think I've asked you that like every podcast, and I don't know, I keep asking. I know your answer. Let's move on. Zaven Collins for the Cardinals didn't play much. Thought he looked fine when he was out there. Kind of again, maybe another one of those like we need more info here a little bit. He had about 200 snaps.
yeah. Linebacker takes a little bit. This was a guy I was pretty high on. He had some good games, but at the same time, just like you said, not a lot of intel on what we're going to take away from this. I still think he's got a little bit of time to develop, and probably jumps into the starting role next year.
Yeah, it seems like I would assume Hicks is gone, and they're going to let Collins be the heir apparent there. That's what I'm assuming. That's typically how this would work. So kind of one we need. I don't know how much more we have on that. Want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, sure. Let's keep it rolling.
All right. Well, we could spend a long time on this one if we wanted to. Alex Leatherwood. It was a shocker at the time. I think guys in the Raiders organization said, "Oh, just you wait." Like 3 games in, he like transitions to guard. Like, well, this isn't working. It's like, how are you this? How do you feel this low about your pick that you're already moving him to guard and changing his position? Like when you drafted him at number 17 overall. Alex Leatherwood wasn't great this year, and I think that I don't think Alex Leatherwood doesn't belong in the NFL. Like I think that he can run block solid. He needs to learn how to be at least a decent pass blocker here. But like he wasn't a good player by any stretch of the imagination, and really a head scratching pick at the time, head scratching now.
Yeah, this was the worst pick of the draft, and there are some guys who didn't play. So
right,
that tells you a lot about this. This is a bad pick. What is it? Most penalized player in the NFL and also gave up the most pressures. Like that's not a good combination.
Mm-hmm. But other than that,
a lot of promise. No, I mean, this definitely looked bad. This is a John Gruden special. I don't know. We'll see. You said he has a spot in the league. We'll see what happens, but obviously he's got a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean that spot might be like being like the 60th best guard.
Yeah. Backup. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, that would be a starter, right? I mean, 2 guards play for each team.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt checks out there. There's 64 guards that start.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're come for the football talk, stay for the math.
Yep. There you go. So yeah, I mean, potentially, he has that spot, but at the same time, like what is the upside here? What's the hope that this gets better? He stops committing penalties.
He stopped the hope is that the pass blocking as a whole can improve. Maybe with a full off season to practice at guard. That's the hope. But yeah, not looking great.
Yeah. Is this your worst pick of the first round?
I think it's hard. You know what? No, I'll say no. There's one I dislike more.
Okay. Yeah, I think I know where you're going with that. So.
Yeah. Let's see. So the next one here, number 18, Jalen Phillips for the Miami Dolphins. Phillips is an interesting take. I think that he definitely benefited from playing in a Miami Dolphins defense, but I also thought he looked good when he was there. I think that, the pass rush is what you drafted him for. The pass rush was solid. And again, for a guy that typically these bigger defensive linemen, it'll take him a year to develop. I think that, I'm still not ready to give like a complete take, yes or no, but I think that, I liked what I saw so far 1 year with Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, there was games where he looked awesome, and then there was games that I forgot he was on the field. Mm-hmm. And obviously, he had those 5 sacks in 2 weeks that everyone was excited. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a little bit of time, and he was also somebody, I think, just in general, who, based on, his transfer, the injuries he suffered through and all that kind of stuff, it kind of felt like, maybe if he has a year, it's okay. But still, I mean, even, with that criticism, 8.5 sacks your rookie year is pretty good. So,
especially when you had, 550 snaps too. So it's not like he was out there every play.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reason to feel good about this. And if he ends up, maybe not Parsons level, but if he ends up, one of the best pass rushers out of this draft, basically, or one of the best pass rushers in the league, I wouldn't be surprised he has the talent. I think it's just, once he gets more reps.
Yeah, and what a draft that would be for the Dolphins then with Waddle and Phillips, and even now I still like that draft. So a team that's maybe struggled in previous years, feeling good about themselves. Let's go to, or do you have anything else?
Plus Holland too. That's 3 guys.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I was just thinking first round, but you're right. Let's move on to Jamin Davis here. Maybe not he didn't get a ton of snaps. He got again around 600 or so. So, a decent amount of sample size. Not the linebackers a hard position to get into first year. All that has to be mentioned. It wasn't a mess, but it wasn't this wasn't one of the better picks either.
No, definitely not. Coverage is hard for a linebacker. Even if you look at the better ones, they struggle with really bad. And the beginning of the year, this Washington team really struggled in coverage, and a lot of it had to do with their linebackers not doing their job. he's got a long way to go in that regard, but I think that there's still some plays that you look at and still feel pretty good about. He seems like he's going to be okay in the pass rush too as a linebacker. So maybe you can add that to it, have that, but at the same time, yeah, it's not the best pick.
Yeah. We can also, and yeah, I also think that, maybe it might be fair to say a little bit too. Ron Rivera's scheme does kind of rely a lot on the linebackers being able to be able to cover well. So kind of makes, it's maybe a little bit more, there's more gaps he has to cover than like some other schemes might have a little bit more of a tighter window he has to cover.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't look great so far, but like you said, I think there's a long development track here for him.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to the 20th pick, Kadarius Toney, my guy out of the draft. Toney was one of the most frustrating situations, I think, where you get this like super explosive, electric guy who's such a unique talent, and you put him in a Jason Garrett offense. It's unfair.
Put him with this team in general, where his quarterback barely played.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive line wasn't really helping much of anything, and I mean, his number one receiver too. His number one receiver partner is not really in there all that much either. Really rough year. There was some really high highs, and then kind of similar. Either he wasn't on the field or wasn't doing much on the field. There's a lot of 2 catches for 10-yard kind of game, and there's a lot of games he didn't play. But you look at like the game against Dallas where you had 10 catches, 189 yards, and you're like, okay, I'm really excited for the future of Kadarius Toney.
Yeah. That was, I mean, again, that one game is kind of why you still hold out hope for the Giants fan, and also just the situation he was in. You have to feel like he has a good chance to break out in future years, and they could use it. That's everyone kind of made fun of this pick, or kind of made fun of the Kadarius Toney and also the Kenny Golladay no combined touchdowns. Well, again, Golladay stays healthy, Toney stays healthy. That could change things.
Yeah. Are you worried about his size just staying healthy? I mean, Smith has the same issue, but Smith stayed, I think, mostly healthy. I don't think he missed a game. Are you worried about that potentially going forward in his career?
Maybe a little, but I don't know. I mean, 6 feet, 193 pounds is what he's listed at. It's maybe like 10 more pounds to make him feel like it'd be a little bit better, but like I don't think it's that big of a deal. I just want to, I don't know. I guess I think injuries are just so weird to sport. Like they just happen in general. I'm not overly concerned.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm. All right. 21 here. Kwity Paye for the Colts. I kind of feel like this has got to be like a definitive win, right? I mean, again, it's kind of like he was brought on to rush the passer. He rushed the passer well. Like I think that was his goal. That's what he was able to accomplish in his 622 snaps he had this year.
Yeah. It was a good pick. I thought he did good. I thought he did well overall. Yeah, I think there's things you're really promised about. I guess the question is, should this have been wide receiver?
Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, yeah, probably. I think there's other. I guess Rashad Bateman, who we'll talk about in a second. He was the next guy to go off the board.
Elijah Moore was in the conversation, I think, still. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the one question I do have is like, could you have upgraded your offense, which clearly needed the help, where you felt like this defense was, even at the time, even though they started out kind of slow, you felt like the defense was further along and could have used an upgrade on the offensive side of the ball next to Pittman.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think I agree. I like the player, but maybe you could have gone a different position.
Yeah, but I mean, I like the future of Kwity Paye. Like you said, I think he's very good. I don't think the 4 sacks either. I think he could have, if he's near the double-digit mark next year, I'm not going to be surprised because I think he's a very good pass rusher.
Yeah, exactly. Sacks can definitely fluctuate. Let's go to Caleb Farley. Another one of these, I guess, to me, typically it's okay. He gets hurt. We'll call this, kind of a needs more information. I think it counts as a bad season, though, when he gets hurt, given the fact that the only criticism about him coming out of college was injury proneness.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem. And especially, like, their secondary got pretty good last year. So it's like, this is another one where it's like, could you have added a piece somewhere else to kind of help your team somewhere else, just compared to, would Darrisaw have helped this team a lot more that very next pick? Would that have helped having Farley this season? I think there's a few different directions they could have gone.
Yeah, I think so. But I also kind of feel like I like it's good. It's results oriented thinking versus I don't know what the logic oriented thinking. I like the logic behind it. I thought that made sense. The idea behind it of let's take this guy who, if it hits, we have an elite corner potential guy, and let's just try to make that work. And who knows, it could still happen. It's not it's not over just yet. You just hope he can stay healthy because he's so electric when he's on the field.
Yeah, no, I agree. So.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Christian Darrisaw. You brought him up. Darrisaw, again, he didn't play the whole year, but he looked good when he was on the field. And I think that he's someone who you feel good about if you're the Vikings.
Yeah, another good pick, especially when the tackle before him is Alex Leatherwood. You feel better about it. He looks like he's just going to be a good pro. I don't know what his ceiling is, but he looks like he can be solid at that position for several years.
Yeah, and again, these offensive line picks, they're never the sexiest by any means, but there's a lot of talent to like on this Vikings offense, especially.
Yeah, I mean, this offense is going to be fun, and this is just another piece. You didn't really need to add much else to the offense, so yeah, I mean, you feel good about this team on that side of the ball going forward. It's the other side of the ball you have to worry about.
Right. Yeah. And, we'll see how Darrisaw can play too when, isn't run blocking on, every snap.
Yeah. They'll still probably do that plenty amount.
Probably. Speaking of running the ball, we got a couple halfbacks here. The Najee Harris pick, which I said at the time, I didn't hate. I didn't hate the idea of it was an all-in move. Maybe it's not the best all-in move, but you're picking towards the end of the first round where I'm more okay with getting a halfback here. They really liked Najee Harris. I don't know if it worked out. I mean, I thought Najee Harris was solid. I don't know if he, the hope was that he would be this like great halfback that could really help propel your team. And also the hope was that Big Ben had a little bit left in him, which he didn't. So it didn't work out, but I don't hate the idea behind it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't love it either, but I don't hate it as much as another one that we'll talk about soon.
Yeah, if Harris is good, like I'm not going to be surprised. If he's good as soon as next year, I'm not going to be surprised. I think it would take some upgrades to the offensive line. I think Pittsburgh drafted in a weird spot because it's like at this point, like Darrisaw was gone, Vera-Tucker was gone, Slater was gone, Sewell was gone. So like those were kind of the offensive lineman prospects plus Alex Leatherwood. So they couldn't really upgrade out offensive line. You looked at.
Oh, did we lose Kyle or did we lose me? What's going on? I'm not sure. Here, let me know in the chat. Look for me. I just see Kyle frozen. I'm not sure who's. I think my internet's fine. So I'm not sure if we've lost Kyle or not. Might have lost Kyle. If we do, we will. I will kill time for a second. So let me just double check. Okay, yeah. So it is me here. Kyle is frozen. All right. Well, I guess let's talk about Najee Harris for a second while we wait for Kyle to come back. Okay, Kyle, you're back.
I don't know why my internet died.
It's the James Harden thing. This is really happening.
Yeah, I guess so. How weird.
What a wild coincidence has happened here. People were very upset in the chat, Kyle, that you were missing.
Oh man, I'm sorry. What was the last thing you heard from me?
Something about Najee Harris.
Oh boy,
not giving away much.
So yeah, I mean, like, I think
you were saying that like you wouldn't be surprised next year if he was good as well, and maybe there was no offensive lineman on the board.
Yeah, basically positional value for what they could have upgraded on their team. Like there was the 3 defensive backs that were kind of rated at the top. They all went.
Right.
The 4 offensive linemen were rated above. They all went. And so at that point, you're kind of stuck with, okay, can we reach for a guy like Eric Stokes, or do we just take someone who we think will help our offense a little bit more? And I think Harris was a fine pick there. But yeah, I mean, it's a running back in the first round, so I'm never going to love it.
Right. And you have, like Greg Newsome's another guy that could have gone with, who went a couple picks later. But so those probably, in hindsight, those would have been the better moves. But again, I got the logic behind it. What I didn't get the logic behind was Travis Etienne here. Unless, like, I guess there was some weird talk about, like, maybe, Urban Meyer wanted him to be like a receiver and halfback type thing. If you feel like Travis Etienne is this Christian McCaffrey guy, I can at least see some logic behind it that clearly does have a decent amount of value. But the weird thing is, obviously, a halfback's the main time to have their value is like those first couple of years. And as of right now, like not going to be good for these first couple of years. It was just sort of a baffling decision when you need to just acquire talent and you're in a full rebuild to go for a running back. I just didn't understand it whatsoever. This is my least favorite pick of the draft.
Yeah, I still think it is. And listen, I had Etienne as my number one running back. I still think he's incredibly talented, and it stinks that he got hurt. But the fit on this team makes no sense. Like you hit the jackpot with drafting getting James Robinson undrafted. Why then go waste another? I hate drafting running backs in the first round. Why waste one after hitting a home run on the undrafted running back to go get another one? It made no sense from the beginning. I hope he's good because I think he's really talented. But we'll see. I don't know. It seems like a horrible pick.
Yeah, and I like the player too. It's one of those weird things where it's like I don't necessarily hate the. I think that like the Jaguars would like to have Travis Etienne. I think that that's cool. Like I like that. He should help them. But it's just like there's just so many holes on this team, and I kept thinking when I was watching games last year, it's like Laquan Treadwell is the number one option, and you drafted a running back here in the first round. It's just one of those weird situations.
Yeah, like you can justify a running back when it's the Chiefs and they just won a Super Bowl,
right?
Not the Jaguars.
Yeah, and that was Travis Etienne at 25. The Chiefs was at 32 as well, so you had a bit of a jump there as well, which was I think another factor.
Yeah, so just an overall bad pick. He may be awesome next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he's really good, but at the same time, like I don't understand the selection.
Yeah, I mean, how good does he have to be for us to say, okay, you know what, we were wrong? Does he have to be Christian McCaffrey?
Basically, because people still think Saquon Barkley was a terrible pick. I still think Saquon Barkley was a terrible pick. And Barkley, when he's at his best, is really talented.
Yeah, I agree. Although that one was also number 2 overall, which added in.
Yeah.
But weird decision by Jacksonville, which is also odd because they've been so good everywhere else. Jacksonville's just been so smart in every other decision.
One of the best organizations in the league. Everyone universally agrees.
Yeah. Also, let's talk about the Browns, a team that we used to, say similar things about. Greg Newsome, the second here. Greg Newsome was good.
Yeah. To get a quarterback at the corner at this spot, I think this is a good pick. I really liked what he did. I think that there's promise here. And I think he's going to be a nice piece in the secondary going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing you can maybe argue is like it's a bit of a scheme that's easier for corners to play than some others, but like at the same time, like that's kind of what you want to do is draft players that fit your scheme, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I'd like to see a little more ball skills out of him next year, but I mean, just that's kind of nitpicking. I think he's going to get better at that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think that he's in a good situation. He's got a good secondary around him. There's talented players around him, so that helps. And they got to get some offensive talent this next year. So I think it's a good pick, though.
And obviously it helped when you got JOK in the second round, too. So that makes it easier.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Let's move on. Let's go to number 27 here. The Baltimore Ravens drafted Rashad Bateman, who, again, I don't know if I'm willing to say this is like a slam dunk. This is kind of maybe another one of those like he met my expectations. Like, he was solid, and he clearly is a guy which the Ravens just need, like solid receivers. Obviously didn't play the whole year, but when he did come in, I ended up with over 500 yards. So, that's the hope basically is that you get a full season's production out of him. I think he has shown he has like 1,000-yard receiver capability, and who knows, maybe he can grow and get better from there.
Yeah, I mean, he's at 43 yards a game over 12 games. I definitely think there's room to grow. I think his size obviously is a factor. And I think he's going to be good. I think he's, a really good pass catcher. We'll see how he continues to develop, but it seemed like that this is something Baltimore kind of needed because they kind of had, Brown's more of a speed guy. Andrews is obviously terrific. I think that it's a really nice complement of players to have those 3 players together.
Yeah, and I still think they could get another receiver in that mix. But this, if he's on the field and healthy, this makes things. In a perfect world, if you had Bateman, Sammy Watkins, Hollywood Brown, and Mark Andrews all on the field and healthy, and also Lamar Jackson on the field and healthy, I think this Ravens offense looks just very different than it did last year.
And J.K. Dobbins, who didn't play at all.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens are awesome again next year, and everyone's just kind of feels pretty bad about stuff they said this year. Like, I don't everybody was gone, it seemed like. We just listed all the guys who were basically, outside of Brown and Andrews, basically not healthy. I think this team's going to kick ass next year.
Yeah, yeah, they could be very. I was actually watching some Lamar Jackson tape, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy's amazing. Like, oh yeah, I kind of almost forgot. Like, oh yeah, this guy's like absurd, and, like breaks the game of football.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. So,
Right.
Lamar Jackson is good. So yeah, I mean, I'm high on the Ravens for next year if they're healthy.
Yeah, hot takes here on this show. Lamar Jackson, good at football. Let's move on. Let's go to Peyton Turner. This was one of the head scratchers at the time, and kind of is. I feel like we need more information, right? I think that, like, I get why they drafted him. This is definitely like what the Saints like. What a 6'6", 270-pound edge guy who can stop the run well and rush the passer well. I think that he was as advertised in the 100 snaps we saw of him, but we barely saw any of him. So I just don't know how much. I still feel like I need to see another year of him.
Yeah, like you said, he was awesome in the snaps we saw, but we saw like 150 snaps. So I don't know. Like it. I guess you look at it and say, hey, we have a good defense. This is our Trey Hendrickson replacement, I guess. But yeah,
Sure.
We'll see what happens as it pans out. I don't know. It's too incomplete for me. I didn't get enough on the 5 games he played this year.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to Eric Stokes here. Again, I was very high on Eric Stokes coming out of college because I like the guy that he has really just the elite speed. It's going to do wonders for you as a corner, and we saw that this year. We saw like how that's okay. Oh, he gets speed at the line, but then he comes back and is still going to make something happen with his speed. I think we also saw like, okay, if he could just get his head turned around better, he probably has a couple of pick sixes this year. So he needs to work on that. And part of that is, Georgia, they kind of teach their corners, play the player, don't play the ball. Maybe you change that a little bit. There's potential for him to get those splash plays, which you want to see a little bit more of. But I thought that this was a win for Stokes in his rookie year.
I really liked him. I was impressed. And, what we thought was going to be a great situation for him didn't turn out to be as great as we thought because there were some injuries on the Packers edge rushers and at Jalen Alexander. So
right.
It basically threw him into this number 1 corner spot that I don't think he was ready for. But at the same time, like, he graded out pretty well given the circumstances that he was in. I thought it was an impressive rookie year for him. I'm excited for his future.
Yeah, you look at his bad play. It's like, okay, what, he got like beat by DeAndre Hopkins. It's like, okay, like I'll live with that. Like as a rookie corner getting beat by Hopkins, like yeah, okay, that happens.
Yeah, I'm excited for his future. I think he's a really promising corner. I think he took a lot of lumps his first year, but I thought there was a lot of really good reasons to be optimistic going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Number 30, Gregory Rousseau, who he was one of those weird guys coming out of college, right? Where it's like he had all these sacks, but you actually watched the sacks and like they were like none of them were like beating a tackle. It was all like just like him doing this like weird stuff. And so it's kind of more like, and then we didn't see him at all last year. So I was kind of just concerned about what he was going to do going in. But again, he played well. And for an edge rusher, which everyone's looking for the next big thing when it comes to edge rusher, for him getting drafted when he did and still playing as well as he did, this is definitely a bit of a gem for the Bills.
Yeah, there's definitely times where you watch him and you think this is the best athlete on the football field, kind of that Myles Garrett thing.
Right.
No, he's not Myles Garrett yet by any means, but there's moments where you watch him and you see those flashes and you're like, okay, this is the guy. We'll see if he gets to that ceiling, but I definitely think there's those flashes there in his game. If it pans out for him.
Yeah, the ceiling I kind of made a comparison to was more of like a clowny type of like just like this, like he's this freak athlete who like maybe isn't necessarily like perfectly built to play football, but like he's such a good athlete he can still make it work.
Yeah, I mean when you look at a guy who's 6'6", 260, I mean he's gonna find a spot in the NFL.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean I definitely think he has a lot of upside to him, and he had a good rookie year. So I think the Bills feel really good about this pick, and this was a spot where it's like okay. The pass rushing last year for the Bills was an issue, so we needed an upgrade. But at the same time, they could kind of take this risk, and it seemed like it worked out for them.
Yeah, I agree. Only a couple more pass rushers here. We had a pass rush run here at the end. For the Ravens, Odafe Owe, who, they felt like they lost, your guy, Matthew Judon, to your team. And then they, kind of this was their replacement for him. And again, I thought that he met the expectations that they got. I think he played well. Kind of one of these. I feel like a lot of these guys, like, yeah, like you didn't like blow me away, but you did what you were asked to do, and maybe even a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you feel pretty good about this pick. I mean, so is this pick basic? Like we're talking about these last two picks, and we're going to get into it with the next pick also.
Mm-hmm.
Is edge rusher turning into like the defensive version of running back?
Yes, for me, yes, 100%. But you're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, we're basically like, if you don't have a tier 1 guy, you can get a rookie deal to replace. You can get a rookie contract because you felt like, okay, is he as good as Matthew Judon right now? Probably not, but you still probably watched what he did and said, okay, is this like 80% of Matthew Judon already? Probably. Like you could probably I just think that replacement level edge rushers are really good. I guess is the better way to say it. So that unless you have the tier 1 guy, you don't really need to pay edge rushers. And maybe that's what we're seeing as we see these edge rushers on the last 3 pick all be pretty good, is that it's easy to find replacement level players at that spot.
Yeah, I think a good example is you look at the Ravens drafted Owe and Bateman in late round picks. So let's just assume if you could replace one of them with either Matthew Judon or Chris Godwin, guys who would get a similar contract. I think Godwin would get a little bit more, but who would you rather have? I think you'd much rather the value from a Bateman to a Godwin feels to me significantly more than an Owe to a Judon.
Yes, I agree. And I thought Judon had decent year last year, but
Judon's good. It's not a slight of Judon. It's a slight of the position.
Yeah. So it's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think it's because I think we're gonna come away from this 32nd pick too, saying that we like this pick. But it is interesting to see how these guys are kind of getting replaceable.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So again, Joe Tryon Shoyonka. We're going to go with that pronunciation. How did you feel about Joe's rookie season?
Incredible athlete. Incredible athlete on the field. I mean, the way he can track down guys. I guess the good news is that if they have to let some of these guys go, at least he's there. I guess the question is based on what we knew going into this next season that we're about to see, where Godwin on the market and all that, would Elijah Moore have been the better pick here?
Interesting. Well, so I think that certainly knowing what we know now, that Antonio Brown would leave the team and that Godwin would get injured, we would have much rather had another receiver than a solid rotational edge rusher. I guess just the question is, I don't think they were even thinking about 2022 when they made this draft pick. It was strictly how can we help 2021 the best? And I think you can maybe make the argument of how much did that help us in 20? So I think in hindsight, I would say yes, but in terms of at the time, I would probably say no.
Yeah, not to mention you expect Tyler Johnson to get better, not worse.
Right, and Scotty Miller too.
Yeah, exactly. Those guys went down, not up. I thought from the first season. So yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. And that's probably results oriented. But that's another one where it's felt could they have gotten an upgrade elsewhere? But at the same time, incredible athlete. I think he's going to be good for several years. And you have to feel good about the pick in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The athlete, I mean, we saw him against Philadelphia in both games they played, kind of just play this sort of off the line, just quarterback spy, which you never see edge rusher doing that. It's always interior line or middle linebackers seemingly doing that stuff. So that was an interesting thing. And yeah, 27 pressures and about 500 snaps. So, that's kind of played half the year, 27 pressures. If you double that, it doesn't quite work out that way, but a 50 pressure season, you'd certainly take at pick 32. So that's the hope. And you just, again, there's room for improvement here with someone who's is a different kind of athlete than some of these other guys. So I'm certainly happy with this pick. Hated the Kyle Trask pick, still do, dumb pick, but Joe Tryon Shoyonka,
Yeah, I like his game too. So that's our first round.
Yeah, that's it. All right. So now next pick, we're going to do all 7 rounds, right?
Yeah. What is that? 260 picks?
Something like that. I'm really interested in hearing, all these 6 rounders, what your thoughts are on them.
Give me your Grant Stewart take right now.
Grant's. I thought he was good. Did what he's supposed to do.
What did he do?
It's about good special teams.
There you go. Give me
Yeah.
your. All right, that's it. What about Cameron Cheeseman?
I think he might have the potential to be the next GOAT long snapper, Kyle.
There you go. Well, you're all set then.
How many long snappers do you think you could name?
Not a lot.
I think maybe one. I think maybe Cameron Cheeseman.
I know Cheeseman now. I'm all set with the cheese man. I know Joe Cardona too, but I mean that's just because he's my long snapper.
Okay, there you go. Kyle, this is a good question. Someone in the chat said, I really want to know Kyle's take on the 175th pick. Kyle, what was your take on the 175th pick?
Well, the 175th pick, who is 175? Let's take a look here. Jason Pinnock. I got nothing for you, man.
Nothing about Jason, the cornerback selected by the Jets out of Pittsburgh with the 5th overall pick.
He, not very good numbers here. He was targeted 9 times for 7 completions. That's not good numbers, but we'll see what happens.
Are we now becoming a Jason Pinnock podcast?
We're pro Jason Pinnock on this podcast.
We're probably giving him more. Okay, I guess he transitioned to safety.
Oh, did he?
Hey, PFF gave him a impressive 89.5 run defense grade.
Well, that's good for a second.
That was in 54 snaps too. So I was expecting like 1 or 2 snaps. No, hey, maybe a good run stopping safety.
There you go. The next Jamal Adams is in New York.
Yeah. Scott B says, Kyle, I really needed your Ben Skowronek take. No one knows his name, and no one should. I mean, he's just the worst player to ever put on a football uniform.
Yeah. Was he the worst? Yeah, that was such a bad Super Bowl appearance, man.
I know. It was like I was so ready for him to like have one moment. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have called it. I nailed like, okay, he could be an unlikely hero, and he couldn't stop like dropping the football and screwing up. It was such a disappointment for me.
Yeah, that was rough. Poor guy.
Yeah, maybe he can improve. I don't know. All right, Kyle, that's our show.
All right.
And next week we'll actually have some like actual stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I know. We got franchise tag coming up, then free agency after that. So it's basically football season is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, football season is back here. That's what we're going to refer to it as. So, yeah, Kyle, let them know where they can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin. That's Grondin. And make sure to follow the account page. That's at On the Sideline JK, at On the Sideline JK on Twitter.
Yes. Again, thank you to everyone for listening or watching. We do appreciate it. If you're a YouTube only watcher or listener, you can check out the audio only feed anywhere you get your podcast. That should be available if you want that. Or if you're an audio only listener, check out Jackson Kruger Sports here on YouTube if you want to see the video. Good stuff here, Kyle. Any final thoughts before we head out?
190 days till NFL season. Let's get to it.
Yes, Kyle. I've been watching more. I watched some basketball this week. I watched some of my 76ers.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're all in, right?
Yeah, I'm all in. Nothing is. I mean, listen. There's nothing more fun than right after being a Daryl Morey fan. Right after he makes one of these harebrained schemes, the immediate impact is always amazing. It cools off. It's cooled off every time, but the immediate impact—that's where it's fun. I
can't wait till they're on like ABC the first game against like Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And they have 60 free throw attempts, and everyone's just complaining because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and Kyle, I hadn't thought about the free throw thing. Why not just like give them the points?
Because it's not guaranteed they're going to make it.
But like, make a guarantee. Just give. Wouldn't that make it more interesting? You just give them the points.
No.
Why not?
Because fouling is a strategy defensively for NBA teams. Why would you prevent them from doing that?
Well, I mean, like, okay, in the final like 5 minutes or so, you can change it.
I think you got to earn the points no matter what. I'm not a fan of getting anybody free points.
So, do you also feel that way about safeties in football?
But you earn the safety. You have to tackle them in the backfield.
Not if there can be penalties that can create a safety without it actually being tackled in the end zone.
But that's also because you're forcing them to throw the ball away. You know.
Well, but couldn't you argue you're forcing them to commit the penalty?
Yeah, but at the same time, I still think it's a defensive strategy that teams use. I'm not a fan of giving away free points.
Okay,
And
well,
points,
here's my argument is everyone complains about fouls. Like, we don't have, or everyone complains about how boring free throws are. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, you make that a part of your sport. You can work around that if that's an issue.
I don't think that's I think that there's things that they can change as far as how games are officiated. But
Okay.
I'm not a fan of changing that teams can't shoot free throws.
How about this? Make basketball full contact.
As in full contact, like people can tackle?
Yeah, sure. Can't hold. You can push. Maybe give guys helmets and pads. Play on a grass field.
And if you score, you get 7 points, 6
Yeah,
points,
well,
and then you
6
get a
points,
free
and then
throw.
we'll have a really easy extra kick for a 7th.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. We can call it hockey. Sounds like a good plan. Kyle. All right. Good show.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't wait to do it again next week.
Yeah, it should be fun. Next week we'll talk about all of the franchise tag stuff because the deadline is the 8th, and we will be podcasting after that. So we'll talk about that stuff, and we'll be previewing the upcoming free agency madness that will be happening just a few days after that podcast. So again, next week, Wednesday at 5. Join us live. It's a lot of fun. And again, of course, as always, see you later, alligator.
Peace.